Boa tarde a todos e sejam muito bem-vindos à 67ª live do Entrelinhas, um espaço de conversa norteado pelas palavras de escritores, tradutores e outros intervenientes no processo da escrita de um livro sobre o próprio livro. É entre linhas que as palavras surgem e nas entrelinhas que descortinamos o seu significado. Esta 67ª live, na ressaca do mês do orgulho, decorre no dia no qual, em 1986, o Parlamento da Nova Zelândia aprovava a lei da reforma homossexual, legalizando a homossexualidade no país. Neste dia também, em 2011, o Sudão do Sul ganhou a independência e separou-se do Sudão. Cultura árabe e homossexualidade, assuntos tão dispares, mas que são amplamente abordados no romance de estreia do convidado de hoje, Guapa, de Saleem Haddad, um escritor de ascendência iraquiano-alemã e palestino-libanesa, que vive em Lisboa, reconhecido pelo seu trabalho na literatura LGBT e pela análise das complexidades culturais do mundo árabe. Guapa, que eu já aqui mostrei, é o seu romance de estreia e foi aclamado internacionalmente. E também contaremos com Ricardo Marques, poeta e tradutor, tendo traduzido para português entre dezenas de outros poetas, Carson, Billy Collins e Patti Smith. Em 2022 publicou Desidério, uma antologia pessoal dos seus poemas éditos e inéditos sob o prisma do amor, da beleza e do desejo, pela Não Edições. Em 2023 ganhou uma bolsa de criação literária do Ministério da Cultura para escrever um novo livro de poesia que publicou em 2024 na editora Detalhe, na coleção Elementário, denominado Chumbo. Em 2025 saiu também, editou, uma antologia de poesia gay europeia. Também tem desenvolvido atividade de pontilhista e colagista, tendo organizado várias exposições das suas colagens, escrito e pensado sobre elas. Sem mais delongas, vou adicionar então o Saleem e o Ricardo à conversa, que a partir deste momento segue em inglês pela primeira vez neste podcast. Both at the same time.
You see my poster?
Oh, wow, that's very nice.
Yeah, I framed it the other
I
day.
have the book near me.
I don't have the books with me. I should have read them.
So, first of all, thank you both for accepting this invitation to talk about a book that has been on everyone's lips, Guapa. So, may I start with the questions?
Yes, go for
Yeah?
it.
Okay. First one. Why did you decide to choose this specific title, Guapa? That is something like a game with the Latin readers, because Guapa means something for us.
Yes. I mean, Ricardo already knows this, but when I was going to bars and clubs in especially in Jordan and Lebanon, which is where I grew up and spent a lot of my youth, the bars and clubs had lots of Latin names, and we always used to think it was funny that they had lots of Latin names. So when I was writing the novel, I really did not think that the book was going to get published. And so it was just a bit of a joke for me to use a Latin word, basically. And I didn't even realize that it was going to be the title of the book, but that's just how it happened. So it was something that was really just a joke, but it's a bit of a reference to a lot of the bars in Beirut and Amman that have these names. That's really the story.
But Guapa is very important for many characters in the novel.
Guapa the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why did you choose to write in a triptych structure?
It came to me quite late in the process, actually. Initially, I had it in chapters, and I I think it was maybe 3 months before I had to submit the final copy of the book. I realized I just moved everything around completely in the novel. I realized that something wasn't working. It wasn't flowing with the intensity that I wanted. And I knew as well that the triptych structure, I had seen it done in some of my favorite novels, and the person who taught me, who I took a writing course with, his novel was in a triptych structure as well. So I just thought that would be good rather than the chapter format. And then once I had that in place, then it all started to fit in, and I could see exactly the 3 different sections, what they were each doing. It just made sense to me that way. It was a discovery. There was no kind of meaning beyond that.
And it was a team decision, writer and editor, or you played the principal role?
In the structure?
Yeah.
No, it was totally me. In fact, I was in an unfortunate position where my editor left the publishing house before the edits were done.
Okay.
And so I had to work with another editor who was not so invested in the novel, basically. So the last 5 months of editing, it was just me basically moving things around. So that movement was all my decision in the end. The editor who left, who's now my agent actually, she really was focused more on the character development, and that was really the area that I worked a lot with her on, was around character development rather than the big picture structural stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And why did you choose to set the story on a turbulent day with the narrative unfolding in flashbacks? Why that decision?
When I first had in mind to write the book, I wanted to write it over 10 years. So I wanted to have the span of the novel be 10 years, starting from, I guess, 2001 and then ending in 2011 in this kind of very joyful Arab Spring, blah, blah, blah. Because that was when I started to write the novel, was in 2011.
Okay.
And so everything was very optimistic still. But then when I actually started to write, I realized that the canvas that I was working on was much, much smaller, because I was going into, I started writing from the first night that they met, Timur and Rasa, and just them unlocking the door into the house took 3 pages. And I realized, okay, I have to change how I'm thinking about it. So then I set myself a challenge of just thinking, okay, I remember reading Christopher Isherwood's A Single Man, which is set over a day. And I just thought, okay, can I do something similar? And in fact, the first line of Guapa is an echo of the first line of A Single Man, where Guapa is the morning begins with shame, and I think A Single Man is the morning begins with saying, I am here, and blah, blah, blah. I can't remember. But so I kind of, from reading Christopher Isherwood's A Single Man, I just thought, okay, let me set myself the task of doing it in a single day. And then it became a bit of a question about how do I then give the reader context about all of the importance of these things that are happening. And then I needed to go back into the past. So that was kind of how I slowly found my way into the structure. It was really trial and error, because it wasn't something that I just kind of, had in mind and I was going to do in a way.
Go with the flow, just.
Yeah, the discovery, a lot of discovery.
And why an unnamed country to set the story?
Yeah, again, Ricardo's heard this already. I feel like my answers are always, the recurring theme is, I don't know, it's just how it happened. I discovered it. But it's the same with this, because whenever I would try, I didn't want to not name a country. I felt it was important to name a country. But every time that I named the country and I decided that I was going to set it in one country, suddenly the writing became something different. It kind of lost a lot of the urgency and the poeticness, and it became a lot more explanatory and anthropological and uninteresting. And then I wanted to make sure that I was accurate to the specific political dynamics in that country, and it was not fun anymore for me. And I felt like I was losing focus with what I wanted to actually write about. So then I had to just relieve myself of this obligation to name a country. And then once I did that, then the writing started to flow very easily, and I felt like it gave me a bit of space to be able to explore things. But I think as well, in retrospect now, I can say, I think there were always going to be complexities with naming a country. If I said that this country is Jordan, or this country is Lebanon, or this country is Syria, I'm doing two things. First of all, I'm putting a flashlight, a spotlight on that country, and basically saying, this is the situation in this country. And also I'm potentially going into a strange situation with the queer community in that country, because I would then need to describe things in a way that is very accurate to that community. But then how do you do that without exposing that community? It's not a straightforward process. But not naming a country allows me to dodge all of those things. And then it became really fun because I was traveling around for my work. So I was visiting a lot of countries in the Arab world, and it became very fun to pick up a bit of urban geography from one city, a bit of like dynamics from another city, a conversation in a third city, and put them all together and see what comes up.
It's like a puzzle.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So it will be very difficult to say the word in the right.
Is that what you're gonna ask?
Yeah. Would you explain as it's difficult?
Yes.
What Aib is? It's correct. Aib? No.
Aib. Yeah.
Aib. Okay.
Yeah. So what was the question? What to explain Aib?
Explain the complexity of that word.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's I don't think the word itself is complex, because the word just means shame, right? But I was really interested in the culture of shame that I grew up in, and how shame was used as a weapon, socially and culturally. And I was really interested in that because I think, growing up gay in the Arab world, I think I felt a lot of shame for a long time. And I really wanted to understand why that was, because even though I grew up in a house that was not very religious, but my grandmother was very religious, and so we grew up kind of very much as Christian Arabs, which are very religious Christian Arabs. And so but I knew that it wasn't connected to religion, because as soon as I realized I was gay, then it was very easy for me to just put, my Christianity and reconcile that with my faith. But there was something else. There was like a social element. And so I think for me, it was important to talk about shame, which is aib, in the book, and what it means in Arab society, or at least the Arab society that I was raised in. And for me, shame is a two-way thing, because I think that people often see it as entirely a negative thing. But actually, shame is really important in terms of community building, in terms of, establishing a set of guidelines of how we live in a community. And I think shame can be used in a very good way. So, for example, it's very shameful to kill someone. It's very shameful to commit a genocide. These are good ways to shame things. But then shame can also be used as a weapon. So I was kind of interested in that, in how shame also constricts people, and how shame forces people to behave in certain ways and to act in certain ways that might not actually have the community's best interests at heart ultimately.
Okay. And in that way, is guilt or shame the heaviest legacy that we as gay people carry with us in our life, the one that never leaves us?
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't say it never leaves us. I think we, I think for sure that some, shame. I mean, guilt is different than shame, but I mean, I think shame is definitely a key thing that I think a lot of gay people might have. But I think there's also a lot. There's also grief. There's also joy. There's so many other things. I don't know, Ricardo. What do you think? What's your take?
I was
on
thinking of something that when I started to translate it, I did, as you know, that glossary all along the pages. Every time I thought that the reader would not understand that term. And you were speaking about aib, and I was thinking about haram. Because they are similar in a way. One is shame, another one is more like sacrilege. It would be like a consequence of aib, right? You think something is sacrilegious because something is shameful in a way. I don't know. What do you think about that? But I answering your question, I think there's lots of emotions relating to being oneself, either gay or straight or bi or whatever. So I think it's we can speak for it. I mean, you can speak being three gay men here and talking to each other. We can certainly identify some elements of shame all along the way till we understand who we are and try to understand who we are in a way. And but I think that process of growing up, it's relatable to anyone who's growing up. So that would be my short answer to that.
I mean, in Portugal, is shame something, especially as it relates to sexuality? Is that something that comes up?
Country, I would say that. I would say painful being some. When I was translating it, I identified, as I told you, a lot of traits of characteristics of the Arab culture that I found very much intrinsic to our own culture here in Portugal. And I mean, it's different in Brazil, but because there are many Brazils, it's like 100 times Portugal. But in Portugal, certainly there's in any conservative religious country, as Spain, as even Greece, and Orthodox countries.
We are very religious and more in the countryside.
Yeah,
where I live.
So I think obviously that's the urban type of.
But do you think it's guilt or shame? Because that's one thing that I've heard as well from some readers is that, especially Catholic society's guilt is maybe a bigger emotion than shame, especially as it relates to like queerness.
Yeah, well, I'd have to have a think about that. But like that's food for thought for probably future. But I think obviously if you are shameful of who you are ashamed of who you are. If you feel that, it's because you have some type of guilt of being who you are. So they are totally related, I think. If you're not ashamed of anything. I remember these days because obviously there's a new Madonna album, and so with three gay men, I have to talk about Madonna. And so I remember when 1985, by reading, I was around in 1985, but as you were, because we were born the same year, me and Saleem. But I remember that when she was exposed some naked pictures of back in the day when she was not famous, and then there was this cover in the newspaper saying, "I'm not ashamed." So we can all relate to that. I mean, she wasn't feeling like we don't feel now, that any of what we did, our learning process of knowing who we are, if you don't feel the guilt, you don't feel the shame. Probably that's.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think there is a slight difference though, because I feel like guilt is quite shame is a very relational experience. You feel ashamed, you know, vis-a-vis something in the eyes of someone else, or you know. Whereas guilt, I feel, is more internal. It's more reckoning with your own moral, morality, your own idea of ethics and what's right and what's wrong. Whereas shame feels a lot more external and enforced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question.
It's the philosophical time.
Yeah.
So, to relief, we know that the fruit is often used in queer fiction, but why almonds?
That's so funny, because I had not even thought about it, but then I was in Porto last week and someone mentioned it to me, the almonds, and I thought that, you know, the almonds and queer novels, and I just thought it was so unintentional that if I was doing it intentionally, I would definitely pick a much more sensual and erotic scene than the scene of the almonds in my book. The reality of it is that I remember it's something my grandmother used to say, aided in constipation, and so I that's why I put it in. It's, you know, it actually has no links to kind of the lineage of queer fruit, let's say, although unintentionally now it's part of it.
We have peach in the contemporary novels, like the coconut.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We can do like an anthology of that.
I need to think if my second novel has anything with fruit. I don't think it does, actually.
No, I don't.
Now I feel like I really missed an opportunity. I'll make sure in my third book that I'm very consciously, you know, linking a fruit to something.
You have to redo the 9 weeks and a half again.
Yes.
There's a lot of fruit there. And some other things. And now about the relationship between both of you. How did the collaboration between the author and the translator develop?
Well, I wouldn't call it a collaboration. We didn't talk throughout the translation.
Okay.
It was a typical relation in terms of author and translator. If Saleem was dead, it would be the same in terms of how I translated the book. But obviously sometimes it helps when you have the author alive and you can discuss with him some details of what he means. In this book, I didn't find something that, I mean, I could have discussed what do you think about translating the terms of a glossary, of many other aspects, but I didn't feel the need to. If I would feel the need, I'll probably contact the publisher and try to contact Saleem. But yeah, afterwards, after the translation was finished, we met just before I did my presentation of the book, and then that was it. If I recall well, Saleem.
Yes, no, I think that's accurate. I mean, it's always interesting to me. I'm trying to think if I was involved with if I had any back and forth with any of my other translators. I feel like maybe the Spanish, there was a bit, but I can't remember now. But generally, the experience has been quite, you know, they do their thing, and then, but you know, I'm always here. Yeah, but was there at any point beyond the glossary where you thought that you might want to get in touch, or there was questions that you weren't sure about, or?
Well, I love to meet the people that I work with and in a way collaborate with, like a translation, because I think it's always useful to know the person. But I didn't want to sometimes I'm a bit prude in that. I didn't to intrude or feel that you as the author would be intruded on. Obviously, I mean, this is very personal, but I feel like it was my first time translating prose. I've been lots of poetries from different traditions and different countries and times, and that's and when, well, actually I was seeing some emails, and it was yesterday, the 8th of July, 2 years that I was contacted to translate the book. So it's kind of an anniversary. It's quite fitting that we did this today. And then, but then I progressed it as long as I did a bit every day throughout 3 months, and to try to find the rhythm, to try to convey what because that's the thing about translation, isn't it? I don't know if you have translated, Saleem, but you must have, because you know many languages. But it's not it's the rhythm that you have to catch in the beginning. Either genre you translate. If you catch that, and if you work throughout with a certain if you do something every day, that probably you will. I don't like the expression of becoming the writer, because I don't believe that. But I think that you start to vision the world as the author does, and that's the most difficult thing to do in a translation, either language you work with. So I didn't. I started to. It was funny because we talked about this. There were so many aspects that I could relate to in terms of being a gay man born in 1983 in a different part of the world, having this grandmother. I had a similar grandmother. I didn't have the same experience as Haza in the being an only child of parents have gone, but I could relate to it in terms of my upbringing in a way, and so that probably is the translation to get into the groove. Madonna quote.
But I mean, I think that's really, I think what you're describing is also really the beauty of the translation, because you're taking this work that's from a different culture, that's written in a different language, and you're then kind of embodying it, and then putting it out in this new language, but within it also you're kind of making, placing it in the context of the language that you're speaking in, which is Portuguese and Portugal. I think it's a really interesting process. I've heard really great things about the translation.
Me too, and I was very pleased because I never knew till I didn't revise it, which is something I was very puzzled about it. So I think, I mean, I don't know if there's any mistakes. I haven't encountered one from my rereadings, but I was a bit taken aback by not having to see the revision. I'm used to work like that. I know when you do the first draft, you approve it as the translator, but then you have to. I did when I worked throughout this 3 months as a whole. I did leave it for a while to come back to it to do the final revision, as I do always. But you need to take more time before publication to have that. The manuscript or the draft, so you can, because you will see it with different eyes. And
exactly, totally, yeah.
Well, I was a bit when I learned that it was going to be published, and I hadn't seen any proofs. I was a bit, oh my god! I hope everything is okay. I hope it's readable. And so, and the other day I had this amazing review. I mean, a video review of Paulo Jorge Vieira, who is also a 2BJ, kind of works in the same field, and he told me so. He told everyone it was a public video. He told everyone. I don't know if you've seen it, Saleem, but I know that Jovan probably did. He published this video saying that he tried to read in the original English. He tried to read in I think Spanish or Italian. I can't remember, but he only got into the novel when he started to read the first pages of this translation. I was like, Phew. Okay.
He's Portuguese.
He's Portuguese. Born and
Okay.
bred. So okay. A lot of different
Accomplished.
You must have done something right. No, I mean I've heard from people who've read the English and read the Portuguese that it's a really excellent translation.
Thank you. I think it's because it became me in a way.
Yeah.
And
So
that word.
with all you said, was it an easy book to translate?
I don't have a straight answer to that. It's always difficult. It's the different levels of difficulty, I think. As I told you, I hadn't translated prose before. I mean, in a full-length book, I had translated, like short fiction, things like that. But things that I haven't published, some things that are translated for me, you know. So that was the first difficulty about it, is to, it's like doing a PhD in a way, or a master's. You have to be very disciplined. You have to be more than in poetry, because poetry, when I've done my translations, I've done it in a chaotic way. Today I'll read poems, and if I don't feel like, I do next week 3 or 4 more poems, and that's how we come with the anthology in the end. But with the book like this, and with a contract as I had signed, I forced myself to be very disciplined and try to work a bit every day. And it was during the summer, so it was kind of, I had to do my holidays around it, which I do it. I like to do that. I like to always have something to go back to when we're on holidays, to go back to. But the book itself, it's written in a way that it's when you get onto it, it's kind of it is not that difficult, but you have to get it. You have to get what you're reading. You have to understand who Teta is, or who Raza is. You have to get into this world, and once you do that, that's halfway through. You just have to. When you read the words, you just you know where this is going, and try to find the right translation and to put it there. And so it was not. It probably was more difficult because it was the first book of prose that I translated, the first novel. But I think every novel has. Sometimes I read things in English. I just read Perfection. That was published by Fitzcarraldo, and this translated in Portugal. But I was reading it, and it's a guy called Ficenzo. I don't remember his last name. But it's very difficult. I'm always thinking, the default thinking is, how would I translate this? How would I put this in Portuguese? Because my mind works like that. So there's always difficulty. And I think in the end, I always say that poetry is untranslatable. That's why I like to run the risk of always translating it, because you do something else. You find the corresponding thing. It's like translating a statue. You cannot do a statue. It's a work of art. So it's the same in every novel. If you start in that level, I'll try to do my best and try to be respectful. That's a very important word in translation. Not to overthink too much, not to think that you know what's written there, to interpret in the wrong way, because there are many ways you can go in a way that it's not what the author was saying. So yeah, I mean, those difficulties of translation, and I've done for quite a few years, I think they're relatable to all the genres that I've worked in. Guapa had more difficulty in the end to get into the prose, get into his style of Saleem, to try to, because sometimes he has very, and also in English English here to make shorter sentences, and so to try not to rewrite in the translation to fuse the two sentences because it was better in Portuguese. Try to maintain the style too, which is probably that was the most difficult thing in the work, apart from the understanding of the glossary. But I'm very proud of the glossary because even for me, when I go back to it and I think, oh yeah, that means that. And my favorite is charmuta.
Charmuta.
By the way.
I feel like you can tell what that means. Just
I don't know if Siobhan remembers what that means. Charmuta.
You know what's charmuta?
I can't remember because I have
prostitute.
Okay. Because I have it's funny because in some notes we have some the explanation of some aspects of the Arab culture, and I was in the net change work with some medical students around the world, and I was in the same room as an Egyptian guy and a Jordan guy, and it was around the Ramadan, and they teach me how to eat Lebanon. And I fix, and za'atar.
Yes.
It's typical, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I focus my eyes on that type of aspects, and I can't remember, but now I remember. And do you think, Ricardo, translation has also an educational role in that type of explanation of some aspects of the culture?
Well, I think the need for the glossary, and I'm very glad that they ended up having the glossary. And it's not a glossary because it's not in the book, but it's footnotes. To be totally fair with it, I wanted them to have the footnotes because in some parts of the novel, if you don't understand that term, it's probably trickier to understand what it means. Sometimes in a novel, I didn't put the footnote when in the novel, just after the term, there would be an explanation. And that happens sometimes. It happens that. So there's no footnote for that. Whereas for a haram, there is for that. I think in that way, I'm thinking about the person who is going to read this in Portuguese. I mean, obviously, the translator has to be the bridge in between these two entities, the author and the public, right? So the public is going to read the language of the target language. Yes, of course, there's always an element of being an intercultural agent and thinking of being respectful in a way to the author and to the writing, and at the same time to put yourself in the shoes of someone who's going to read this and try to imagine, like I am a reader foremost before being a writer or a poet, so I would probably bump into certain some terms and some other ideas of that are here. For instance, I would probably like, of course, with the age of the internet, you could Google everything if you don't know that dish in the Arab culture with when they are having some dinner or having the breakfast or. But it's easier when you have that in a novel. You don't need to Google it. You don't need to go to your phone. So there's probably yeah, the short answer is yes. I think the translations are always, and we didn't talk about this in the presentation. I was I'm pleased that we can talk about this now, because I wanted to focus also the bit of there's a bit in the novel, as you know, when the Khaza is translating, is interpreting.
I was going to mention that, yeah.
So, and I wanted to read that passage when we did the presentation, but there was no time. But it's exactly how it is in the novel. Sometimes it's so important, the translator, that it can provoke wars. You can start a fire without knowing if you need really to translate it very well. And that is even in the book. I totally relate to that. Probably Saleem could develop why he came up with that. but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember now where. I mean, because also my background is in humanitarian action, and I used to work because I spoke Arabic. I was often responsible for a lot of meetings and negotiations with different groups, with tribes, etc. And because I was quite junior, I would often then have to kind of explain the meetings to decision makers. And even though I would sometimes disagree maybe with some of the decisions, the part of me would think oh, maybe if I say this, actually, then I'll get them to do what I want them to do. So that's kind of how this idea of Rasa being powerless, but also this powerless bridge, trying to reclaim a bit of power. But I think I think what Rasa is doing is also slightly different than your role, right? Because I think you are, there's a power dynamic in what Rasa is doing, given that he is kind of, there are these journalists who have a lot of power because they control the narrative, and he is kind of the access point for them. Whereas I think what you're doing as, in translating this novel is something that's different, right? You're bringing a world into your own community, and kind of saying this is a story from over there. And, of course it comes with a certain level of responsibility, etc. But it would be quite funny if you were to completely mistranslate on purpose, but I don't know what it would serve you necessarily.
We do that. We should do a comparative reading. We value profoundly if it's well translated or not. But yeah, I know there's some funny stories in translation that I like to. When people ask me about translation, I always tell this story about how this woman, it's a Slavic. I don't know if she was Romanian or if she was translating a gay poet to Romanian. Or to some Balkans country, and so the poet is gay poet, and he has this. You probably have enough Portuguese to understand now what garoto is, right? Garoto is also a term in Brazil, but also garoto is a coffee term, the coffee realm. A garoto is kind of a latte, right? It's something
mini latte.
Yeah. Something you drink in the morning, a garot. Yeah. You can go to the counter in the cafe and ask for a garot, right? Mm-hmm. So you can understand the many implications of translating this into another language. So it was a gay poet, and she, the translator, was not with a very humble position, said, "Oh, I know what he means here." So he translated not the drink, but the man. So that tells you how humble you have to be. And
wait, so the translator was from which country?
She was originally from the Balkan region.
Okay.
So translation, sometimes it can do wrong things if you suppose too much, if you interpret it in a biographical way.
Yeah.
Because you have to be totally blind. That's why I was saying in the beginning that I don't want to know a lot of things about the author when I translate something. It was curious and I understand why Philippe teamed us up, because we were born in the same year, which is funny. I understand something about what you say about how you grow up as a gay person. Although I know the author is different from the person who's narrating it in Gaza. There's many things in Gaza and in many other people in the world, but you can never suppose that like the literary self is the same as the author. And that's another common mistake of interpreting. But I had like particular experiences, like the one seeing the television of Hours. Do you want to tell that one to João? What happened in
No.
that episode? It might not have happened in real life.
Wait, which are you talking about? Him watching the TV channels late at night with porn?
And being that I did that, but not the episode how it ends. I don't want to spoil who are seeing this, but yeah, that was funny when I did the presentation. You told me that might have not happened in real life.
No, I mean that scene and what happens with him with his grandmother, that happened in real life, and we had a really, like, my grandmother and I, we laughed so much that night. It was, I mean, you know, some things in life happen and they're too good that you just have to put them in your novel.
That's right. I would do the same, I have to say. So I relate to that. Because we were born before the internet and before that was even the phones and in tips of our fingers, and so we could. That was the only way. We had the 18 channel. Remember that, João?
Yeah. Yeah. Universal experience.
So yeah, if I would have to do something like to translate the name of the channel, I would probably put Canal 18, Channel 18. But there was no need because you had a foreign term, Polkasat. There was no need for that.
And I have a story. I was a kid, and in my school, I just started to play with the computer, and I loved Samurai X. It was an anime, and I just put samurai x.com.
Oh,
it was not about an anime.
But those were the exciting times of the internet, you know, where you were just thinking, oh my God, wow, what is this thing that just landed on my...
And I was 9 years old.
Okay, maybe not. Maybe not.
I just enjoyed the anime, and it was a door open to me. Okay, it was embarrassing, but we are here to talk about it.
As a cultural bridge, the internet.
Yes.
So, the final question of the first round. What projects are you working on, both?
You start, Tommy.
At the moment, I'm doing a lot of promotion for my second book.
Okay.
So it takes up a lot of my time. I'm working on like some nonfiction essays at the moment. And I'm not sure exactly what they are, or whether I'm going to continue it or not. I'm just kind of playing a little bit and just seeing what comes out. But I think that's all I can say at this stage, is that I'm working on nonfiction. I had already written a third novel a few years ago, but I put that away because there's just something about it wasn't working for me, and the time now doesn't feel entirely right to be working on it. It's a very sexual novel. It's like set in Lebanon. It's during the protests there. It's kind of like Guapa, but very, very sex oriented. But I just, now in the context that we're living in now and what's happening in the region, it doesn't feel like the right time to work on it. So I've put that away for now. But yeah.
Okay.
Well, I just came up with a translation, Keats translation into Portuguese. Totally unrelated to these concepts. But I realized a couple of years ago there was no translation in Portugal of Keats. So
Kids, the book Kids.
The romantic. No, not Kids, not Betty Smith. Keats, John Keats, the romantic poet.
Oh, right, yes. Okay, yeah.
So I just I just published it, not translated. That took a lot of years to translate Keats because it's very, very different. That I could say it's difficult because it takes a lifetime to translate it. But I'm very pleased about the translation, and I did a self publishing in that. I just had a news today that they want to use in São Luís in the theater. They want to use one of the translations, so I was very pleased with that. And so I'm always in middle of different projects. I started the work on this year on. It's going to take probably another year to do an anthology of gay poet LGBT. Actually, it's a queer anthology of the many letters of Portuguese poets today, or not Portuguese poets. Actually, it's the wrong definition. It's a poetry in Portuguese. So that would be more accurate. So people who are now living here, but they may have been born in different countries, but they write in Portuguese and they are here. They're around our age and they are not known, and so I think we are in need of a translation that maps them, that puts them in a map. That's something I'd like to do, to map poets that are unknown, and that's the two big projects I'm doing.
Okay, so now the second round, and the questions are always for both, and are about the author and the translator. How did your passion for books begin? How?
For me, I think it started with a lot of like teenage horror books, like R.L. Stine, Christopher Pike. These are like American kind of teenage horror. Stephen King. I really got into horror a lot, and that was kind of my entry point into books specifically. But I think storytelling and stories, from a much earlier age, I was really into that. Yeah.
Yeah, I relate to the short story thing. My house was not a household filled with books. From what I remember, there were books, but not like too many. And my father was connected to printing, so I would have different books in different languages that would take home. That would be printed in the printer he was connected with, but it was jobs from other countries. So I have still my reading habits probably began there, seeing the things for children and relating to them. But yeah, I mean, I started to read more often and more consistently through anthologies and of short stories for children or things like that. And I mean, obviously, fiction for like Nancy Drew, fiction for kids like that. Horror was not really my thing, but investigation was more my thing. Yeah.
And I have playlists in Spotify, and I pick some songs with this particular question. Was there any song associated with the writing process of Guapa?
Yeah, there's actually a soundtrack, a playlist that I created. That if you go to my website, you can find the link to the playlist there. And those were the songs that I listened to a lot while I was writing Guapa.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will pick from your website.
Yes. If you go to my website and then click on novels and then click on Guapa.
Okay. And what is it like to face a blank page for both?
Ricardo, do you want to go first?
It depends what you're talking about. I mean, I'm not really a short fiction writer. I don't identify with that. So, to me, I only write poems when I get the inspiration, or I get the idea, or something to start, something I hear that I want to put on the paper. So the blank page for me is not really something that I relate to, that idea of being stuck and looking at the page in a computer or in a notepad. But sometimes I do don't know how to progress, don't know how to continue that idea, or but I'm not really. I see the half empty glass, half full. I always, I have something to start, so it will come up to me. I will continue this. And if I don't, it's something that was not meant to be, or something that will come up later, or so that's I don't feel that anxious about it, and because there are so many texts in the world, I don't care if I don't do it.
I mean, for me, I don't I mean, the blank page as a page is not really something that I kind of think about. But I think more, there's something that's a bit like liberating, but also terrifying and very unnerving about when a book is published, when this project that you've been working on for many years is published. And then there's this space, there's this creative space inside of you that you don't know what it is, you know, that if you're lucky, you already have a project that you're working on, but usually, you know, there's just this empty space of, okay, well, what now? It's kind of like being in an empty house that used to have lots of people, and suddenly you're looking around and it's very quiet. Mm-hmm. So it can be very liberating, but also very scary. I find that feeling more scary than the actual empty page, because I don't think that I actually ever encounter an empty page, because I'm always writing things everywhere, and then the process becomes putting all of the different writing together. So yeah,
it's like the party is over.
Exactly.
The party is over. Okay.
Exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, party's over, but also like you sent your child off to college, you know, because it's out there in the world and you're very proud of it and you're proud of yourself, but you're also feeling it's very quiet inside of you. The voices are not talking to you anymore that were part of your life. That story that you were living inside is out there now. That's quite a lonely feeling, I think.
So, and could you recommend 3 books? Both?
3 books. Maybe we'll do 1-1-1, just so that we give each other time to think, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to recommend Pedro. Huh? Sorry?
Apart from Guapa and Floodlines?
Yeah. I'm going to recommend Pedro Lemebel's My Tender Matador, which was a Chilean novel that was written in Spanish. So maybe if you read Spanish, probably read the Spanish version. But it's a queer novel that's set in the 1980s during the dictatorship there. And it follows this kind of trans woman / drag queen who's she's called the Queen of the Corner, and she kind of falls in love with this revolutionary. But there's lots of interesting things. You know, Lemebel goes inside the mind of Pinochet's wife. So there's lots of interesting things that he does. It's very queer, and he's a very interesting writer. So that's my recommendation.
I would have to go with the last novel I read. Because it really struck a chord with me. It's the one I was mentioning just before, Perfection, by Vincenzo Latronico. I just checked, so I didn't remember his surname. It's translated here in I forgot it was translated a couple of years ago. This is a novel about our generation. How it's about Anna and Tom, two characters. It's a very short thing. I think it's even could be called a novella in a way, because it's very inspired by Perek's The Things, and it's about these two people who are adults right now in Berlin, digital nomads, and there's a bit in Lisbon too, so that's why I'm recommending it. But it's very well written. It's written in a way that it's almost ironic, and it presents you the world as it is right now, with all its difficulties for our generation in a very almost surgical term in a way. So I don't know the translation, how it is translated here, but the translation into English, because he wrote it in Italian, is very.
You want us to keep going?
Yeah, another one.
Oh. Okay, the second one that I would recommend is Minor Detail by Adania Shibli, which is a Palestinian novel. It's very, very short, but it's very haunting, and I think it's a modern masterpiece, really. And I think it's better to go in without really expecting much, but it's just really beautiful. I think it's one of my favorite novels of the decade.
I should say something for poetry, right? But well,
I'm expecting.
You're expecting that. Yeah. Well, I really like Anne Carson's poetry books. I think she's really one of a kind. I've translated one of them in Portuguese, the Autobiography of Red, which is and she subtitles it's a novel in verse. Very difficult to translate because she lives in her own world, and it's a queer novel. So totally recommend that for queer people who are listening and haven't read, because Gideon is really one of these fictional characters that are really stuck with you. They stuck with you. And when I was translating it, I even did a collage scrapbook of things that I was reading in a novel, and so it's something that it was very, very special to me, and I totally recommend any book by Anne Carson.
Okay, and the last one.
The last one. I think I would maybe go for what's it called? It's the one I read. I can't remember the name now, and I don't have it here. Okay, I'll have to think of another one. The one that I really like this year is Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor. I thought that was really, really a brilliant book.
Ricardo, right?
Yes. It's set in Mexico, and it follows this witch who was just killed, and you find out the story of how she was killed from the 5 people who are kind of involved, but it tells the story of so much more than just that. It's just so brilliantly done. Yeah.
I have read this one, and it's
I have it
too. Yeah,
is it good?
Miami. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, I have it. I have that and Paradiso.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Good.
So my final book that I would recommend, and it's really, I don't know if it's a prose book. It's in Fitzcarraldo again, but it's I love their collection of books. They're really every novel I read that is published in their catalog is really beautiful. They're very good curators, and in that catalog. But even, I mean, I read like 4 years ago this novel that's called, it has a beautiful title. I hope it's translated. I wouldn't know how to translate. It's one of those that I don't know how would translate it. But it's called It Lasts Forever and Then It's Over. It's by a Canadian author called Marques. Beautiful. It's beautiful. It lasts forever and it's over. It's about dying and undying in a way, because the character is an undead protagonist. And she travels. It's a road trip all over many parts of a world that is not named. It's kind of a long allegory about this planet and about life in general. And she loses parts of the body, and it's very gothic in a way. It's very gore, but I would totally recommend it, and I hope someone translated it urgently.
Okay, and we are in the final question, and I think you need some time to think about it, because it's the difficult one. If your life were a book, what would its title be? So title your life.
Wow.
I can give you the easy answer and just say Saleem Haddad, a biography.
Well, I've named my anthology of Keats, which I have it here, The Chameleon Poet. So probably that would suit me.
Okay.
I like that.
Because it's an expression he has in a letter. The chameleon. The poet is always a chameleon.
And now a joke. It's Karma Chameleon?
No, I'm more 80s fan of other things. Not into Boy George.
I don't know if I can answer that question, because I feel like if I have a really good title, I want to keep it for myself and use it for a book.
Okay. Fair enough. So,
the other option would be The Ethical Slut, probably, but that's like...
It's taken already.
It's a very famous queer.
But you can use some song title, some title of other books.
Yeah, I really don't know. I'm so bad at these rapid fire questions. I really don't know. I'm looking around to see if there's anything that I can kind of, but I really don't know.
It could be looking around.
Yes, looking around. Let's go for that. That's maybe more accurate. Yeah.
Okay. And it's over. Our conversation.
It's over.
It's over.
Thank you very much. It was lovely to chat with you both.
I hope you both enjoy our time here. And there will be some more promotions about Guapa?
No, I think that's it from my side, as far as I know. I have to do other promotions, but not for Guapa, not in Portugal. I think it's done, yeah.
And we are expecting the translation of Floodlines, okay?
Inshallah. Inshallah, Oshallah.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Good night. Bye.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
Thank you.